maybe you get your...
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something most delicious, most palatable, a show for those with an insatiable appetite for the stories behind people, places, and things. What's the Recipe is where host Amanda Fowler chats with creatives, entrepreneurs, and the accomplished to uncover their one-of-a-kind recipe to success. How did they do it? What did it take? Pull up a seat at the table and indulge in the flavors of inspiration, innovation, and insightful dialogue. I hope you're hungry.
And we're live. You were just pulling some tarot too.
I was. I pulled a couple cards for the vibes for today, which I was excited about.
Do you want to let the people know the vibes?
If you let people know the vibes at the end.
At the end?
At the end.
Ooh.
Surprise.
I like a little surprise.
Surprise vibes.
Okay, so we have Ashley Jones on. And Ashley and I actually have a really cool origin story. Like meet story.
A meet cute, if you will.
A meet what?
A meet cute. Have you ever heard that? It's like a romance novel thing where it's like how someone meets for the first time. If they meet like because someone like bumps into someone at a cafe or like
a meet line.
You lose your like ID. It's like a meet cute. It's like how did the couple meets in like a rom-com movie or in a like romance novel.
Are you saying meet cute?
Meet cute. Like it's cute how they meet.
I thought you meant a meet cue.
And that'd be kind of weird. I don't know what that would mean.
A line to get some meat?
Yes. Trying to get some of that juicy.
Let's talk about how we met.
I had been following you for a while since I moved to Denver, and I don't know, Instagram algorithms as it does. And on a random Thursday, a very dear friend of mine asked me to sub in for an event she was supposed to be hosting because she was sick. And she's like, "Hi, can you host this event?" And I was like, "Yeah, when?" She's like, 4 hours from now. I was like, yes. What?
I love that about you because I would have straight up said no.
I don't know, like I'm kind of balls to the walls on some of this kind of stuff where I'm like, why not? And I'm typically very good under pressure. And I would say that like if I got really good at anything in school, it was like bullshitting. And I don't really mean bullshitting, but I think it's like that idea of like putting yourself in situations and scenarios where you are out of your comfort zone or you might not think you're actually ready to do it, and leaning into your inner confidence and your capacity to like speak or to hold space for something even if your mind doesn't think you're ready for it. So I'm like, yeah, what the heck, sure, let's do it for the plot. The writer's room, like that place is a fun place to be for my life. It must be at this point. But I was hosting it, and it was a yoga at Love Sorrow here in Denver, and they had a yoga flow at the beginning, and then I was hosting the cacao ceremony at the end, and I had held or co-hosted or assisted in one previously, and went in and did what I do when I feel nervous, which is just like tap into my spirituality. And really like it was a wild experience because so much of it was like me but not me, and at the end you were like, "Hi, I need to know you. Let's get coffee." And then we got coffee at this exact cafe we're sitting at right now.
Yep. It's coming full circle. But I think what was so funny about that encounter was I wasn't even really supposed to go to the event. Jessa had posted it on her story, and I saw it maybe 2 hours before the event even started. And I was like, "Lucas, I need to go to this event." Like I just felt a strong pull to go. And I got there and I didn't know anybody except for Jessa and like some of the Love Sorrow girls. And we were doing the yoga and the cacao ceremony, and I swear afterwards, I don't always do this. Like, I'm a very outgoing person, and I'm very personable and sociable, but I'm also selective, and I can turn it on and off. And sometimes I'm like a cat. I'm like, no, like today, I feel very like, yeah, don't perceive me. Like my little hat and scarf.
With your little bandana, like no one can know me. It's giving on. Like one of those women like who's trying in like the movie where she's like a scandal is going down. So she's got like her little like wig on.
Have you read the book, Don't Forget to Write?
No.
Okay, you need to read it.
Okay.
But it's set in the 60s, and they drive around this small beach town in New Jersey in these convertible cars, and they all wear the scarves to not fuck up their hair. And that's what it's giving for me is like I'm driving with the windows down. I don't want anyone to like fuck my hair up.
With your like little like beautiful like convertible.
And they all have their driving gloves.
Yes, and they're like scarf that's like tied around their neck as well.
Yeah. But what I was saying is I don't always go up to people. I try to, especially if it's somebody who's leading an event and I'm like, thank you so much for that event. But I don't always like initiate like I need to meet you scenario. The only time I really ever did that was with my friend Graham, and we're best friends. And that was the same thing. I just felt a pull. I was like, I need to know this person. So with you, I was like, oh my God, I need to know her. And I'm not going to lie, I literally thought you were like 33. And not because you look old by any means, but because you are so wise and you, in the way that you carry yourself in a professional way, is so elegant and classy and just like, you know your shit. And I was like, this girl can't be in her 20s.
And then you met me.
No, and then I met you and I was like, yeah, I get it. But I also feel like knowing you now, there's a relatability that you brought in that you didn't necessarily like give when you were doing the cacao ceremony, because you were in like your professional, like, this is my craft. And I just remember, I was like, I need to know this girl. And so I went up to you, we're talking about like neuroscience and all the things.
As I do.
Yeah, and you're like, I actually have been following you. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then we got coffee at this exact location. Shout out Rosebud.
I love it. I get my little matcha with a lavender, my little dopamine hit.
Yeah, wait, what's your order?
Iced matcha with lavender and oat milk. It's fire.
I got a decaf cappuccino because I already had a coffee and I can't do that to myself or my kids.
I didn't order you a decaf.
You didn't?
No. I thought you asked for a cappuccino. Maybe I did. I don't know.
It said decaf on the ticket.
Okay, good. I was like,
well, we'll find out in about an hour. That's okay. I'm going to Europe in like 2 days, so my body needs to get used to the caffeine. Anyway, I wanted to bring up how we met because, one, I think it builds context, but two, I think something that's really big for people in their 20s right now, especially women, is like, how do you find like-minded friendships? Because you and I think we have the capacity to be super surface and like bullshitty, and like in our 20s just like hot goss. Let's just shoot the shit.
I love the tea.
Love the tea.
Love the tea.
But then also we have the ability to go deep. And like the first time we sat here for like, I don't know, 3 hours talking about like everything under the sun. I think we were talking about like feminine and masculine, and then like relationships.
And then like your writing background, and like how you got into what you got into, and then like how you and Lucas met, and then your story with your kids. Like we got into all of it.
Yes. So I would love to hear for you almost like the ingredients to a palpable friendship.
That is a great question. I think there's something to be said about looking for people that bring something into your life that you don't already have. And it's interesting because I see a lot of similarities between all of my really good friends. And part of how I got to a place where I feel like I am so beyond blessed to have not only like one really good friend, but like 5 incredible high quality friendships. And I'm like, these are friends for life. These are people that like I feel so grateful to have. It feels like a gift to me, especially since I really struggled with friendships for a very long time and feeling seen and feeling like,
what do you think you struggled with? Like finding the friends or being seen like by the friends?
Both. And also being authentic in the friendship and setting boundaries and having, what's the word I want to use? Like valuing my own time and my own energy and not self-forgetting in them. Like I think a lot of times I would just be friends with people because I wanted them to like me, not because I actually wanted to be their friend. Because I really wanted to belong and I really wanted to have connection and I really wanted like people. And I like my female friendships are like, you know what I mean? Like they're just different. And I really craved that kind of deep connection, people who wanted to like, to your point, like go into everything with you, but also had that loyalty and had that like, I see you and I like everything that I see, versus like there being, and I grew up in the Bay Area in California, which I think I've told you, and there was a lot of superficiality that I grew up around, which is just like when you grow up around like money and class and like there's like a certain like
appearance.
Yeah. And it just like I went to a small high school, like I really struggled with friendships in middle school and just like wanted people who got me. And it wasn't until I moved to Colorado actually. I mean, I have my best friend from college, but you just have to really, I think for me, it was looking for people that not only did I really want to be around and feel like added something to my life, but I felt like I was being seen by and I was able to be in like almost this like expansive collaborative relationship with, where like I bring something to you, you bring something to me, together we're better. You are not afraid to call me on my shit. You're not afraid to like be able to do all things. Like you don't necessarily have to be in the spiritual world, but like having some concept of like depth and interest in like all things like
growth,
understanding, growth mindset, and then also like let's go out and have fun and shake ass. You know what I mean? Like there's like it's kind
shaking
of that middle.
Ass is spiritual.
It is. There's a whole thing behind it, like the sacral and like shaking your ass. Yeah, I don't know enough about it to talk about it like from this perspective.
Like, go off, queen.
There's her name is Sahara Rose on Instagram.
Love her. Wait,
she does the whole twerking thing.
Yes, but do you know she just put out an album?
I
a
haven't listened to it. Did you listen to it?
I listened to it the other day, and I was kind of like, oh wait, this kind of bops. Like
It's like shaking out the energy from your
shaking out the energy. It's also kind of like affirmative type of music where they're like she's saying affirmations. It's not necessarily like her singing or anything. It's just like beats where you can shake ass to, and then she's like speaking like let your feminine out. Like it's actually really good. And
I'll be listening to this later.
yeah, you have to. And then you got to record yourself shaking ass.
When I post it on social media, I'll tag you.
Yeah. But do you feel like you were jaded by female friendships because of the experience that you had in middle school and high school? Because I think that was true for me, where I know there was a very clear turning point in high school for me where I was like, I'm no longer hanging out with these girls, and I'm going to be very, very selective. I wasn't turned off to female friendships, but I was like, I'm going to be very selective with them next time. And almost like it was easier to be a guy's girl, or it was easier to like hang with the guys or whatever, versus like truly being seen and uplifted in your female friendships, which is what I feel like we both have now in our female friendships. And maybe that just takes maturity. Or
Yeah, for me, I was always the girl who's only friends with girls. Like guys, it's a whole different story. But like I found it really difficult to find friendship or commonality with men or boys at the time. And I spent a very long time trying to fit myself into something, or to prove that like who I was meant someone could be nice to me, and that just because I was a good person, that other people would treat me with the same quality. And I was just completely overlooking like the lack of compassion or lack of integrity or lack of like actual kindness in someone, to the point in which I just kept being like, oh, this could never happen. Like from someone who like clearly has been communicated, like I'm getting like red flags. I'm getting like, this person doesn't prioritize me. This person I don't feel safe around. My body's feeling weird. Like I feel anxious. Like so people have told me this person is not like a kind human. Right. And then I'm like, no, but like I'm a good person, so why would they do that to me? And I kept putting myself in situations of like forcing connection or like forcing acceptance versus really leaning into what I feel like is what I love to do around friendship, which is I have not a million, but I have a really strong group of friends that come from very different walks of life. Like it's like one person from this, and my friend from when I lived in London, my friend from college, my friend who I do business stuff with, the friends that like are my spiritual friends. Like I feel like I have like little like niches or slots, and then maybe that sounds weird, but I was able to be more, when I was more honest with myself and got more comfortable, and a lot of that came from like people pleasing and also codependency of like I need to be around people and not feeling comfortable on my own, that I felt better about not like just needing to be a friend to someone because I was like, I need to not be alone, or I need to be seen as like cool or popular, like wanted, or like people liked me around me. Like I wasn't comfortable enough in my own skin. And I think I've realized that the reflection of the quality of friendships that I have now come from the amount of work that I've done on myself, and the amount that I continue to honor like who I am and what I want, and like what feels good for me, and like what is not only expanding and bringing me into a place where like I have like really strong community, but the willingness to like, I don't know, like sometimes friendships end, and not because like anything bad happened, but sometimes you just grow out of things. And like I have had to go through that a lot of like, do I feel comfortable with the fact that like you have sometimes, as one of my friends says, like friends for reasons and seasons, and like there are certain people that might be more ride or dies, and certain people that might come in for like certain aspects. And I think the more that I got comfortable around not being alone and really trusting and being my own really best friend, and also at the same time like letting things move as they're meant to move versus like fighting for a friendship that like the other person might not be getting anything from. I'm not getting anything. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like that's the hardest thing about being in your 20s, because I think in your 20s, a lot of people go through this shift of, I was drinking in college and that's how I built all my friendships, was on my like going out persona, or my drinking persona was where my friendships were built off of. And then they get into this, you know, their mid 20s or even their early 20s, and they're on this journey of like, well, what actually feels good in my body, and like, what do I actually like to do? Who do I actually like to surround myself with? And then it gets to a point where you're like, are these friends actually serving me?
Do I feel safe with them? Do I feel like they're going to respect my boundaries? Do I feel like they're going to be like protect my secrets? Are they going to actually show up for me? Are they causing more chaos? Like, is this something that's going to like, is this like hurting me, or is this like helping? You know what I mean?
I think the thing that people struggle with the most is letting that friendship go. So for you, I'm curious if you could maybe speak on, yes, it's hard to let friendships go and like really understand that like people are here for seasons and reasons. How do you not take it personal?
I think you realize that it's not about you. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say like
it's not you, it's me.
Not you, it's me. And also like it's the stage of life you're in. And like you could grow back. One of my really close friends from college, like I'm not as close with anymore. And I think for a minute there I was like, why is this happening? And then I kept like reaching out and reaching out and reaching out. And then I was like, I'm not getting any reciprocation. Why am I fighting for this? Mm-hmm. And I have really gotten to the point where it's, you know, we don't talk about friendship breakups. And I think when they're not like, hi, like I can't be your friend, like there's not that like, and I've never had one that someone has come to me and be like, we are really good friends. And now I can no longer be your friend.
Oof, I've had that.
You have?
Yeah. I did it to the other person though. So I think
that's
it's different
really
on the
hard.
receiving end.
I have more
it's
of like
hard. Yeah. In both ends.
Cause like the slow fade is also hard. Cause you're like, do you not like me anymore? But then I think it's flipping back to you of like, is this actually a friendship that I want? And if the person isn't giving me the time and the attention and the level of depth and the level of connection that I'm looking for in friendship, and then I'm fighting for it anyways, why am I fighting for it?
But I think you hit the nail on the head is this person's not giving me what I want. Why am I fighting for it? But I think the first step, like you're saying, is what do you want? Figuring out what you want. So I would love for you, because you have a really fun story, like going into your story of self-discovery, figuring out what you want. I mean, I want to even talk about like when you lived in New York, like to walk me through that.
I'm like, where to start? Honestly,
I'm
like, so when I was 1997 in Stanford Hospital, there was a child that was born. I don't know. Like, I think you go far enough back there. I went through something really hard with my mom having cancer, and I have twin sisters who have disabilities where, I went through a lot of other stuff in my childhood that there was a point in which I didn't really know who I was when like the priority and the energy in the household was really focused on my sisters who have very high needs, as the energy should have been. But it was hard as a kid to like be someone who likes to be seen and wants attention, because like we all want attention. That's something that is not, that's like we talk about it as like a bad thing, but like we're allowed to want attention.
On me.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? Like the shame that comes up of like you shldn't want to like feel that energy, or like you shouldn't want to be seen, or you shouldn't like do these things.
But I think that comes from, mostly in my experience, our peers being jealous that they don't feel confident enough to do that, to ask for the attention. So they tell you shouldn't ask for the attention when really they want to be. So again, like you're saying, everybody wants the attention.
Everyone wants the attention, and like I think when you're, you get labeled as like attention seeking. There's like, it was a weird thing that happened in my mind, and then all this stuff started happening, and then I took everything that's happening in my external life personally. So I was like, oh, there must be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, great, I'll just become a different person, which fractured myself. Like I look at a lot of what went down in my college years and the immense amount of like, just like bad stuff that happened that didn't need to, socially, interpersonally, like within myself, that a lot of it, if I'm being totally honest from the place I am now, was coming from a lack of actual care and investment in myself and prioritization of like my own needs, and really just like forgetting myself, being like, oh, she sucks, so like I'm gonna leave her there, so I'm gonna become someone new, I'm gonna become popular. And like I was trying to be someone I wasn't, because I thought that someone else would be more likable, more lovable, more friendly, like more popular, whatever it was. Like boys would like her, friends would like her. Like I basically like no. And I look at like a lot of what went down. I mean, maybe they did. Like if my friends from college listen to this now, they're like, she was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the more important thing is like I didn't like myself.
Yeah.
Which like when I look back at videos or pictures of myself from college now, like it's hard to see them because I can feel her insecurity through the photos. And I had to get to a point where, as Amanda, you had shared that I was studying neuroscience, and I've always been just really fascinated in like why we are the way we are. Let me understand this entire thing that we're doing in reality and humanity, and neuroscience was the pathway I chose. And then I went through like a really, really, really hard time where I just was like really struggling mentally, and my mental health tanked, and I was in a really dark place. And I got to a point where I was like, I'm making a decision to change my life, and I'm making a decision to do things differently now. And what is the path to feeling good and liking myself look like? And that took a lot of, at the same time that was happening, I'd actually, for like the trigger point of this, I was in a sorority that like was just like so bad. And like 2 days before like shit hit the fan, I'd had a reading for the first time. And I felt seen by someone who didn't even know me. Like, she was in New Mexico. I called her on the phone. She just asked for my name, my birthday, and she just started like reading me. And I was like, wow, this person has never met me, has no idea who I am. And I feel so seen and validated and recognized by someone when I feel so lost and so disconnected from myself that it was almost like someone was just showing me, this is who you've always been. This is who you are. Remember? And then it hit the fan, and I was like, it was like such a, one of those like kismet, like divine timing. Psychic reading.
Whoa.
Yeah. By this woman.
She's like, come call me. I will tell you what you need to know.
She's actually a lot cooler. Her name's Janine.
She really doesn't even have an accent.
No, she doesn't. She's like a wild, like she's got red hair. She's got like fiery energy.
Flaming locks of auburn hair. I love it.
Literally. And I needed that, I think, before I went through what I went through.
Well, it's also kind of like, whoa, how can like a stranger see who I authentically am? And if she does, that must mean that is who I am.
Yes.
You know?
And to have felt so lost and so disconnected from that person and be like, I was at a point, honestly, where I was like, I hate myself. I hate everything about my life. Like, I don't know what the purpose of this is anymore. And I need to figure out like how to like enjoy and like find meaning and find a sense of like drive and fire again. And I felt like I completely lost it. And she was like, here, spark. And then when everything happened, I was like, spark. I have my spark. Even as this is going down, even if I'm getting like totally socially smeared for something I didn't do, even if there's like complete like bullying happening, even if it was really, really bad, I had my spark. And I went through a period where I just didn't have any friends. Like, people that I thought were my friends were like, sorry, I can't be around you. I can't like support you in this. And like, it was just like, I was like, oh, and I honestly haven't really gotten over that. And I don't know if I ever will. And I think you can move on and find healing even when, does that make sense? Like,
actually, that's why I love Taylor Swift. I was just listening to the Toast too, because they were talking about how like some people are giving her shit for not being over the whole Kim thing, and how she's like still writing songs about it. And it's like, can we normalize not getting over shit? And like, just some things are too big and too intense and hurt us too much to forget about it.
We're not. Why would you forget?
Right, you shouldn't.
And there is a sense of closure you can find, but I do think like, it takes time, and you don't know when that time is actually going to happen. And to negate people's healing process, I mean, obviously doing it in a way that is in service of you, in service of like unity and connection and like the goodness of everyone, like not being like intentionally mean, but also like liberating your voice to be able to speak your story and to be honest about what happened.
Yourself. Yeah. I think that's also what it is why are we shaming people for like hanging on to things when like that's actually us standing up for ourselves and saying, hey, no, this wasn't okay. And it still doesn't feel okay to me because I know my worth.
Yes.
And that was something that I shouldn't have experienced in a way. Like, that shouldn't have happened to me, but it did. And so I think it makes us stronger. But then again, like, I really don't think there's anything wrong with holding on to that.
No, and I like to say that, like, we can't change what's happened to us, but we can scrap it parts. We get to choose what, like, builds us instead of breaking us. And I think that when we have these like intensely horrible, egregious, like truly horrifying things that happen to us in life that like no one deserves to have happen, that how you find your power to take back from it is deciding how you get to like tell the narrative. And is that like the thing that like brought you back your power? Do you get to redefine that? Does that now become part of like your hero's journey?
Yep.
Or does this become, or like as you as the anti-hero, like whatever it is, or does this become the thing that is like always holding you back?
Yeah.
And I think when you're able to start to look at, and I'm like, I'm not fully over it, but I also am like, great, how can that be a place in which I am then using what happened to me to build really incredible friendships, to be the friend I wouldn't have, to create places where people can have authentic, safe, connective community where that doesn't go down. Like that continues to inform the way I am. So forgetting in some ways is forgetting would be erasing in a lot of ways, like the way in which it's now propelling me forward in a certain means. Does that make sense? Like I get to redefine
it's purpose.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a question that people ask me often is like, how do you find yourself? How did you find your confidence? How did you, even if we're talking about health, because I used to have a background in holistic health, how did you heal your body? How did you heal your gut? How did you actually, like, what was a turning point? And I want to ask this question to you too, because I think the question or the answer that I always give is like, I think I got so tired of living that way and feeling that way that at a certain point I literally just had to choose different. I had to choose myself versus other people or other things. And then I added joy. Like joy at the end of the day was the thing that kind of like made me find who I am and find my health again. And I think that it's as simple as that. And I also think that everybody has their own secret sauce to it. And so for me, like it really was that adding that joy back in. You know, I got back together with Lucas. I was feeling happy again, but then I also was like, I'm tired of fucking being this way. I'm tired of this being my reality. I'm going to do something. I'm going to choose me. So I want to know like your secret sauce to that self-discovery after that moment.
I think I just decided to start over. In the same way I was like in a very different purpose. Like when I decided to just like be someone else, that was because I didn't like myself. And then I was like, okay, so like, this is who I am.
Yep.
This is my narrative. This is the only life that I've got. And this is the personality and the interests. And like, this is who I am. At some point, I just have to let myself figure out how to like that person. And I went to London. So I was right before I went abroad to London. And it was really cool to be in a city where it was huge. So I felt anonymous in a lot of ways. I went to a small college. So it was like everyone knew everything. And there was a lot of like conformity, I think, in like small spaces. But I was in a massive city. And I was like, okay, what clothing do I like? Like, what music do I like? Like, how do I give myself permission to like, I called it my feeling again era. My friend Steph could attest to that because that's when I met her. And letting myself, like, even as I was questioning or had like a lot of like toxic thought patterns, limiting beliefs, and like, just like voices, you know, that you don't want to listen to, or narratives in your head you don't want to listen to, that I was like, okay, but like, what if? What if I just give myself permission to like have fun? What if I give myself permission to like what I like? What if I give permission to just be who I am? And that was what, 7 years ago that happened. And I'm still on that journey of like even leaning into it more, of like being unapologetic. And
because I think it always changes too.
It does. And I think so much of like when we look at why do I feel lost? How did I get to a life where I actually don't know who I am, don't know what's going on? It becomes like this question of like, well, how do you be constantly trying to relate to yourself? How do you be constantly, you know, dating yourself? Like, do I like new things? Do I give myself permission to like change the kind of clothing I wear? Like, I decided recently I'm gonna get into like wearing colored eyeliner, and that's like my new piece of my personality. And like, when you give yourself permission to be in a constant state of evolution, you don't get to a point where you're like, how did I get here?
There's so many angles I could take my answer, my thought back to you, but I think something I want you to touch on more, because I talk about this all the fucking time, or maybe like I don't talk about it publicly enough, is giving yourself the actual physical space to explore yourself. Going to a new place doesn't even have to be a new country, but like a new city, a new town, a new state, like
a new gym,
a new coffee
community,
shop,
whatever it is.
Like for me, going to Savannah, Georgia, and then going to Boulder, those felt like moments that I had the freedom to explore a version of myself that I hadn't explored yet. And I think that I really believe that it's important to give yourself the space, but I think that not everybody has that opportunity.
Yeah.
But for you, I'm curious, do you think people need to give themselves that space, whether it's even just space from your fucking phone? Because I think that's also a big problem with people in their 20s, is we are so glued to this thing.
It just triggers comparison out the wazoo. Like out the freaking...
And also distraction.
Because it's easy then to not have to sit with the discomfort. And if we can't sit with the discomfort, we can't figure out why it's making us uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And if we're constantly avoiding it. Yeah. And like, to be very clear, like, I still have moments where I'm like scrolling or like doing something as a point of avoidance because I don't want to be feeling whatever I'm feeling. And then at some point I'm like, okay, let's roll it back. What's coming up right now? Like, why am I feeling this way? What is this triggering? What boundaries do I need to set? Like, why is this happening? And I think a lot of times when we are doing something incredibly vulnerable, which I think self-discovery work is like the most vulnerable thing, because you're like, who am I? Maybe I don't know. And how do I then be, once I do know, or once I have this inkling? Because at the end of the day, I think I will say this too, even when we feel like we're lost, we know who we are deep down. It just becomes like a digging exercise. Like that identity, like that core aspect, the values, the things that bring you joy, the thing that light you up, like these are almost like soul imprints. I like to think like this is something that doesn't change no matter what flavor or like presentation you're putting it into, like that kind of same
flavor.
You know what I mean? It's like different covers of like a same song. Like the lyrics still the same kind of like music, but like different takes on it.
It's like it's an unraveling.
Yeah.
It's a peeling back the onion because it's in there. Yourself is in there. And I think, I mean, even Lucas is going through this right now. He just got a therapist. I don't know how much he wants me to share about his therapy. But what I want to say is I think a lot of people in their 20s are going through this. Okay, I've lived 24, 25, 26, 27 years of my life. Who am I? What do I like? What do I want to do? Because I think we get to this point in our 20s and we're talking about, you know, doing a whole series of events on like quarter life crises.
Yes.
Crises. And I think it's because we're realizing the amount of time that we've lived and the amount of time that we have to live. And we're kind of like, whoa, it's like an editing process. It's like, whoa, do I like who I am? Do I like what I'm doing? What's going on here? It's like a reevaluation. And I don't know about you, but I think we've talked about this too. But like when I turned 25, I felt like I felt my frontal lobe like 100%. Fully finished
like
developing.
Day of, I was like, wow, the clarity has arrived.
No, but I didn't have clarity. You know what I had? I had fear for the first time in my fucking life. Because I have always been somebody, I experienced social anxiety in high school for a little bit and bouts of anxiety here and there around. A lot of my anxiety actually was surrounding like sleep and like thoughts of death, and like that always scared me. That's where my anxiety came from. But like I never really felt fear in like a consequential way. Like I wasn't I had a baby at 22.
Yeah.
Like I never thought about
you were like here we go.
Yeah, I never ever once thought like I'm going to get an abortion and because I can't, I'm so scared of the consequence or the outcome or how I'm going to do this. It was like, oh, I'm pregnant. I'll figure it out. I got it. We'll see. Like, we'll just figure it out. I never felt fear. And part of me wonders if I got pregnant at like 26, what my thought process would have been, if it would have been different. Because for the first time, I really fully felt like fear. And then because I had fear, it was like doubt, second guessing myself, fear about things.
What was the fear about though? Like, what is the core fear that comes up for you?
I think the fear truly was like about my own success and my own potential. So going for it versus not going for it and what those consequences would be.
And what would the consequence of choosing wrong be? Choosing
wrong, choosing to do it, choosing to not do it. I think I just became aware of consequence. Truthfully.
You and I are such different people. Because I feel like I had the opposite experience. I was like, wow, I actually like myself. It was the first birthday where I didn't like count how many people had texted me.
Oh.
And like care about like if like I, you know, or counting like if this person texted me, what didn't. It was the first day I was like, I just felt grateful to be receiving love. And I felt grateful. I was like, I actually like myself for the first time. It was like a mile marker in a very different way, which I think is interesting of like, I just like, it felt like a gift or a moment of like gratitude of like, I wasn't expecting this. How nice. Versus like counting if enough people text me, if enough people post on their story, if enough people like write these essays about how much they love me, then maybe I am lovable. And it was the first birthday I woke up and I was like, I actually don't care. Like I actually just feel good. And like whether it's just like a happy birthday text or an HBD or like a like on my story, or if it was like a nice beautiful card my friend gave me, or if it was a voice note or a call, like whatever it was, I just felt grateful rather than like feeling like I was constantly being let down. And that letdown was then a reflection of like my own self-worth and my own likability and acceptance and like value as a human.
Yeah, no, for me it was just cause and effect. It was like I realized cause equals effect. And I love that you're sharing that sentiment though too, because I think that there are different experiences. And I think, like we said in the beginning, we're very similar, but we have very different experiences. We're in very different phases of life. I'm married with 2 kids. You're single. Like, I think that it's a beautiful friendship because we have different things to offer and different flavors to add to the conversation. And for me, I think the thing that I was scared of, because you know me, I've always been a very driven person. Success is something that I want to achieve in my life, and I want to reach my potential. I think what it was the fear of not reaching my potential, and I realized that this isn't just like a fun creative project for me anymore. This is my fucking career. This is my time to go or to hold myself back.
Well, how do you define success?
Oh my God, how much time do we have? Truthfully, I think success for me is freedom. And I think freedom is money, truthfully. Like I did this I almost said hypnobirthing. I did this hypnosis for the first time, this like guided meditation hypnosis thing. And it was incredible. And I went into like my 11-year-old self, and she was confused. And I think it's because I always wanted like emotional support as a kid. And I always got monetary support, which is beautiful. Like I'm so grateful for that. And I didn't always get the emotional support that I needed and wanted. And so for me, I think I like villainized money in a way.
Interesting.
For so long. And I made it like this thing that wasn't mine, that I couldn't have, that I don't even want because it was given to me when I really didn't want it. And it was almost given to me in place of love sometimes. Like, oh, we can't give you this emotional support, but here's a teddy bear, you know?
And like and I want to say this because I had a similar experience. Like, one does not negate the other. Yeah. Like, I think that there is, when we talk about like abundance and this idea of feeling like there is a never ending sense of resource, like that means emotional, spiritual, physical, monetary, like relational, like there's so many different levels of abundance. And I love that you said freedom too, because I spent a lot of time thinking about this given what I do for work. And I really do believe that every single person's purpose on earth is freedom. But their flavor of freedom is going to be so unique to what their soul came in to learn, to do, to expand. And to me, freedom is the permission to be authentically yourself and to let go of the shadows or fears or shame or points of friction that we all have within ourselves, and the ability to exist both in relationship to the world, but also in trust that things are working out for us. Does that make sense? Like, it's almost like the balance middle point. Yeah.
Which is the hardest thing. And I think that balance was good for me until 25. And then 25 hit, and I was like, oh, I feel like I'm not trusting in the universe as much as I should.
I'm about to be kicked out of parents' insurance. I need to figure this out. That was a whole moment for me.
I'm actually on it until the end of the year. I turned 26 in January, end of the year.
Yeah. I got kicked off on my birthday.
So I'm like dentist, gynecologist, ENT, like everything.
Yeah.
But I think this is an important conversation too, because it does look different for everybody. And that's also what I want people to understand through this podcast is like, it's about understanding everyone's recipe to success and that it's different for everybody. Not only the journey to getting to success, but also what success looks like.
100%. And if it is freedom for you, which I really truly do believe that like every person, you're like, what do you want in life? Whatever you're wanting is some sense of freedom or sense of expansion or some sense of like connection to something that you don't have, and that it brings you the sense of like being able to exist exactly as you are. And you know, I think we've already touched on this. Like, I have a lot of privilege, like from the body I'm in, from the skin color I have, from the background that I come from. And at the same time, I do think that there is a capacity to look into the very small moments of like, okay, some things are outside of my control. What is in my control? What do I have influence over? What do I have power to sit with myself around to be able to say, I believe this thing. This is my either greatest, darkest belief about myself. This is my fear around that. How do I then flip that belief into one that I can actually work with? And so like, that's where I was, that's what one would call shadow work. So it's looking at the like parts of us that we don't want to have seen, that we hide away because they're not pretty and they're not socially acceptable, that we learned something in our life that fractured this belief off from a piece of our like authentic core power that it created a conditionality of like, it's only available if X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
And the question is, can you flip the conditionality into a point of unification by dissolving whatever it was to then take your power back from it?
This is kind of reminding me of Winnie the Pooh. So I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. If you didn't know, I feel like anyone listening probably knows. And there's a Disney book that we have, and there's Winnie the Pooh book, and it's basically Piglet is really scared because he thinks that there's heffalumps and woozles underneath his bed. And he doesn't want to go out into the woods because he's scared of the heffalumps and the woozles. And Pooh is like, well, what if you just pretended to be brave? And then you're just keeping to pretend to be brave so that then all of a sudden you just are brave. And it's kind of like what you're saying is like, you acknowledge the belief, you could become aware of it, and then you see how you can flip it around.
Yes.
And then just become the inverse of it almost.
100%. And as you're saying that, something that I'm thinking is that I think that at least this was for me, I like ended up doing this whole self-discovery journey in London, came back, was like much more comfortable not going out, not partying, didn't like drinking. I enjoyed the partying thing for like 6 months in college until like first semester. And then I was like, I'm over this. I want something with more substance to be a place of connection. And then kept forcing myself to do something that I didn't want to do that ended up just feeding my own mental health in a not a good way. But then I graduated college and I was like, my aunt had told me, she's like, you should move to New York City because like, I think everyone should live in New York City and do it while you're young. And so I was like, okay, great. So I just took the first job that I got and I hated that job. I hated that job. And
was it like fluorescent lights?
oh my God. I used to joke that I had an energetic allergy to the space where I would walk in and immediately have a panic attack. Like my body couldn't handle the noise, the amount of people. Like I was just completely overstimulated. And I had studied neuroscience in school and the piece of my ego was like, this is a job a monkey could do. And I like understand like the mechanisms of brains and like how that influences. I was like, what am I doing here? And because I took something that I so deeply did not like, I was forced to then be like, well, what do I like? Because I hate this and I feel trapped by this. So I was like, do I go join the Peace Corps? Do I go, like, I just took that as like, I don't like my circumstances. So how do I like throw myself into figuring out what I do love?
I want to pull something out of that because I think that this is actually something that people our age don't do enough is taking opportunities that they know they're not going to like. Or maybe they don't know it, but then they're getting into it and then they don't like it. Like, I think people are so scared to even do something because they're like, well, what if I don't like it?
Well, why is that a bad thing?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
You're casting a judgment. Like, if I look back, and I really believe this, like, yes, there are things that I wish I had done differently. I choose to take that as a way that informs my future and the way that I'm making decisions now versus judging and critiquing a version of me who is doing the best that she could at the time. And there's no point in like sending all that energy into the past. Like there is something I can learn by really truly looking at her and being like, I took a job to move to New York City to figure out what I want to do with my life. The job forced me to figure out what I do with my life.
Yes.
In a lot of ways, did the job suck? Yeah. Did I figure out where I wanted to go, or did it take me to the next step that I need to be on to get to where I am today? Also, yes. So I choose to have a perspective of that time that was, I see it as a net positive.
Yep. You learned something.
Yes.
And I think that if you're sitting in a situation where you don't like where you're at, you want to get closer to who you should be and who you need to become, do something, because you're going to find out whether that thing is getting you closer to it or not. And then you get closer to it just by default, by like almost trial and erroring.
100%. If we're not comfortable with failing, which like I will say this as a recovering people pleaser and perfectionist, I hate the idea of failure. But if I think this is where you get to then be like, oh, I hate failure because failure means that I did a bad thing or I made a bad decision. I can't trust myself, which means that like on some level I'm like not adept at taking care of myself or making decisions for my life or being able to live a life I want. Great. That's the belief. How do I then decide that failure is actually success? How do I decide that like success is now defined as moments when I fail and then choose to not be broken by them or be broken in a way that allows me to somehow grow?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like muscle tearing when you're like building muscles. Like I'm tearing this, yes, uncomfortable, but in the source of like building something else.
That's actually a good conversation though of like, what are you scared of? I think that people need to ask themselves that.
And get really honest.
Yes, because even when you were asking me like, what was the fear? Even when you're saying that, I think I've never been scared of failure ever. Like I've always been like, yeah, that's a part of it. I think what I've been scared of is like not reaching my potential. So like doing something, but doing it half-assed, or like not getting somewhere that I want to get, even though I'm trying, you know? Like, that fear is always in my mind of like, well, what if I don't get to where I want to be, even though I am trying? And it's not failing that I'm scared of. It's like, I'm scared of trying and failing, and still not getting there.
Well,
and
then
I guess
I
that
would
is
flip
failure.
that. Yeah, but I would flip that into like, is your potential an external reality or an internal relationship to yourself? Because oftentimes we look at and that's not to say, like, to be very clear,
I think it's both.
it is both. But when we are living a life that we're expecting, and this is where the real quarter life or midlife crisis comes into, when I have X amount of money, I'll be happy. When I have a partner, I'll be happy. When I have kids, I'll be happy. When I own a home, I'll be happy. And then you get the physical thing and you're like, why am I not happy?
Yeah.
Well, I hit the bar. And then you have the like, I go buy a motorcycle, or you have the like midlife crisis of like, I don't know who I am. Because when you are only approaching decision making in life from a place of thinking the external thing is going to give you the internal experience versus seeing the dual relationship. And this is where I'd flip it. Like, if your potential is an external thing, like, this is what I think I'm capable of. Not only are you limiting what you're capable of by thinking that you know everything that's possible for you, because it could be better.
Yeah.
And it will probably be better.
Yeah.
You are also not relating to what do I feel like? What is the version of me that exists in that moment of external potential? And how do I start to become her right now? Because what ends up happening is that you might actually make a different decision that you thought you were going to make. Or you realize, like, maybe I don't dream of living in a penthouse. Maybe I want to farm with some goats. Or maybe I want to be nomadic. Or maybe I want to have, like, move across the world. Or maybe I want to be self-employed. Or maybe I want to have a stable job. And, like, we end up living our lives based on what other people have then defined success as, versus really taking time to figure out, like, no, but what do I crave? What kind of life do I want to lead? What speed do I want to lead that life as? And knowing that you are the only one who is going to know what is right for you.
And I think what you're touching on is like, actually, let's not zoom out so far. Let's zoom in. Because something that I struggle with is like, I have all these big dreams. How do I like work backwards from that and take the next step that's going to get me to that dream? But that's limiting, because what if the dream that I have is actually more of like a feeling of what you're saying, it's an internal relationship versus the external thing that I'm dreaming of, and by being so specific on that thing, I'm actually missing maybe the different things that are going to bring me there.
Yes.
Or the thing there is going to change. And so I want to kind of transition to something else, because I think going into this, something that you're actually really good at, and I think is why we bonded, is networking, like taking the next step and taking the coffee dates, meeting up with people. Like, I think that is such a key ingredient to your success with your business. And we haven't even talked about what your business is, but you can talk about it. But I think it's one with friendships, but then I also think too with like your businesses, your opportunities. And again, I think for me, actually, building relationships is success, and getting opportunities is success. So whether that's an opportunity to go like take a vacation with my family, or an opportunity to like go speak on a panel, or an opportunity to, you know, get a podcast deal and make $1 million. You know what I mean? Like, it's all opportunities is what success is for me. And I think people miss out on opportunities by saying no to some things. So I just want you to maybe like talk about your recipe to networking and building relationships.
What an interesting question. Because I had such a hard time for so long with building relationships, I feel like not only did I have to recognize myself as someone who is worthy of being in a relationship and see my own value, I needed to start being more intentional. And I also just like love talking to people.
Yeah.
And it's a reflection of like what I do as a coach and healer. I get to spend my time. Yeah. And I get to spend my time doing what I love. Now, my recipe, like if you're an introvert and you're listening to this and you're like, God damn, like you could not pay me enough money to spend my whole day networking, which like for me, I'm like, if I could sit and just spend time with people all day and connect and create, like that's all I want to do. That's what works for me. Doesn't work for everyone else. But I do think that there is a quality to building genuine connection that allows you to create a network or a web of humans that with the right people. And of course, there's gonna be people you like connect with and you're like, that was great. Like, I don't feel the need to continue to. Like, I'll just plant that seed and see what happens. Or maybe you're like, oh, I don't actually ever want to talk to the person ever again. That's okay too. Like, I learned something from that you're able to create this like sense of deep relationship. And I think so much of what is missing in our current world is really authentic, genuine connection, where people are able to show up as they are. And even if you're like, but like, what is 100% authenticity? Like, that doesn't exist. Like, you show up as you are, whatever feels good for you, to build relationships. And when you're able to do that from a place of like, yes, there is a secondary result sometimes from those relationships, but when you lead from like authentically wanting just to like understand someone and ask them questions and get to know them as a person, you're able to really, and this goes back to your first question, like full circle of like, how do you build friendships? Like, are you showing up because you want something from that friendship or because you want to get to know someone? And I know I talked a lot about like things I received from friendships, and I think that was allowed me to like kind of tune into like what I really wanted and being honest about that. But when you're also just showing up and having a conversation over coffee and just wanting to get to know someone else feels really seen, and you also invite them to ask you questions where you will feel seen.
I actually think that this is something that I learned in the last year. I feel like you're almost never going to get the secondary outcome that we touched on if you don't lead with just getting to know the person first. If you aren't leading with building a relationship with somebody, you're never going to get the opportunity that comes from knowing this person, or that comes from building a relationship with this person, or that comes from making a connection with this thing or that thing. Like, it has to be
genuine too. It has to be genuine.
And I also think like you can be genuine with also knowing like this is a great business move. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that doesn't have to be icky.
Well, that's boundaries.
It's boundaries.
That's being like, maybe this person isn't my best friend, but do I think that their values in business are aligned with my values in business? Do I think this is something that feels right to me?
But also, am I just trying to take from them, or am I also wanting to give? I think that's really important that I've learned. Like, I spoke about this on another podcast where like I totally have made the mistake of just like going up and being super eager beaver to somebody and being like, oh my God, I have a podcast. You want to come on it? Like, I think you'd be great. And they're like, what's your name?
Who are you?
Who the fuck?
What is this podcast?
And so that's such a burn the dish moment of like, don't do that. Like, I think that building relationships is going to get you to where you need to be or where you want to be, because someone's going to give you a perspective about something that you're going through that's going to help you, or that person can help you maybe from their resources or their connections or whatever, or just being a support person. And so I think that like bringing it back to success and relationships and friendships, I think you are the culmination of like the 5 people you surround yourself with. But I think you cannot just pick people based on what they're going to give you.
But what are you going to bring to them?
What are you going to bring to the table?
And I just having this conversation around dating with my friend too, of not only who do I want in a partner and what am I looking forward to and what do I want that partnership to bring me, but who do I want to be in that partnership and what am I offering? And can you find a dynamic in which there is overlap? And I really do believe that relationships are like Venn diagrams, and really healthy relationships have the enough space where you're overlapping and feeling really connected, so it's like tight knit, but not too overlapped where you've completely lost your sense of identity. And whether that's like a friendship and you're like, we're so codependent, like I don't know who I am without her, I can't make decisions without this person, like, or if it's like I'm in a relationship and my partner's my only friend, and I don't know who I am outside of that there is a healthy amount of overlap of like where we are connected and where we are independent. Where we are dependent and where we are independent. And I think so much of that, again, comes back to like, what am I bringing to this? Like, what is that overlapping part? And how can I see our differences? Like you said, like we've talked about, like you have 2 kids and are married. I am super single. And seeing that as you and I have core values that we really share, that makes us friends. Like, I don't need to have kids to be able to get what you're going through. Because I am a person who I'm genuinely wanting to connect with you on like a deeper level. And I think when you're looking for those friendships, a great place to start is obviously with like common like hobbies or interests or like things that you can relate to someone on. But then it's going one step deeper of like, what does this person bring more of to my life? What does this person expand and encourage and grow within my life? And also, what am I helping them expand and grow within their life? Does that make sense? Like, it's a layer deeper of like value alignment.
And I think we need to do a part 2 because we're running out of time. Because I also do want to talk about relationships, like romantic relationships and dating in your 20s. And I think that people listening probably want to hear it too. So we're going to do a part 2 because I think we could do like a building relationships 2-parter. Like, this is friendships, this is business relation, this is friendships, but then also relationships, like love, like
sex,
dating, sex, all of it. I think it would be such a good episode. And what I want to wrap up here with finding yourself and your purpose is like, I want to do a fun segment called Eat or 86. So are you going to eat it or are you going to 86 it? Meaning like 86 means like
I was like, I don't
it's all
understand
out.
what that means.
So 86 in the restaurant industry, and I'm going to butcher this for anybody listening because Lucas is actually the one who usually says this, but 86ing means like they're all out of so if, okay. So say like the chicken parm is 86.
Okay.
They're all out of it.
Okay.
It's like it's gone.
Okay.
We're gonna 86 this episode. I'm gonna ask you to do that at the
Okay.
end. But for this segment, I want you to say, are you going to eat it or are you going to 86 in it? And it's
Okay.
all about like self-discovery tools.
Oh my God.
And
give
I
it to
don't
me.
want you to really like elaborate too much because
Okay.
we are running out of time. But I want you to just like tell me your first gut reaction. First, before we do that, I want you to just like give people context. What is your job?
What do
you
I do?
for
Who
work?
am I? I am a transformation coach and healer. So I help people find their way back to themselves by blending in different aspects of neuroscience, spirituality, body, spirit, mind, all of the stuff so that people can feel confident in not only figuring out who they are, but making decisions and designing a life that feels right and freeing and expansive to them. And I do that through really incredible group programs. I do that by helping you connect to the 5 different versions of self. So the inner self, the version of you that's listening to this in this moment, sitting right here, listening to this, the present you, the body, the past self. So the inner child, inner teenager, every single version of you that's come before, the future self. So the version of you in the future where your dream has become your reality when you have that, like whatever it is that you're craving right now. And you might even know you're craving it. The shadow self, which is the parts of you that like you don't want to see, we kind of already talked about, and the higher self, which is like the integrated whole version of you that's like in complete alignment, your best version, favorite version of self. So getting to work with all those versions to be able to like find that freedom you're seeking.
And I ask you to share that because it's going to make sense for the things that I like actually point out, the tools, because I think you use a lot of tools too to be able to do all of what you just said. And so let's get into eat or 86. Okay, tarot.
Eat.
Okay. Give a little elaboration.
Eat it. Tarot is a tool for self-discovery, and I love that each card offers some type of different perspective or storytelling where you're able to look at the message or what it's offering, what the symbol of it is, and notice how you're relating to that coming up for you and what that's inviting you to like dive into your life. I think it's like a great tool to be like decision making, what's coming in, what do I want as a point of self-reflection.
Clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Reiki.
Eat it.
Okay. Explain.
I love Reiki. It is an energy healing modality that comes from Japan. It is basically you're infusing your body with universal life force energy or like pure love consciousness and getting to be in a place of letting go of energy that's stuck on whether it's the body, the emotions, the mental level, like all of the different levels of our consciousness. And I just think it's like really nice. Mm-hmm. And I just like to bathe in it. Like I do
know.
Reiki on myself constantly.
It is nice. And I think it's nice getting it from somebody else though too. And specifically in person, especially if you can get somebody who like, cause I know not all Reiki is like hands-on, but especially if you can get somebody who can like actually physically touch
Yes.
your skin. Like that's important. I think for me, I always feel, I don't even know how I could describe how I feel afterwards. I just feel better.
Blissed
feel lighter.
out. Yes.
Blissed out. Kind of like when I get acupuncture. Calm.
It's very great. I love it for nervous system regulation,
Yeah.
which is huge when it comes to like letting go of stuff that's stuck
Yep.
in our bodies.
Okay. Astrology.
Eat it.
Okay.
I love astrology. You know this about me. I like forced you to get an astrology reading, which you still haven't updated me on. I still
I
want to know
have to.
everything.
It was life-changing.
I told you. Lauren from the Modern Astrologer, big plug to her. She's incredible. I think that is, whether you believe it's real or not, a really incredible tool, again, of self-reflection and of curiosity. And some people are like, well, how could the stars, when you're born, like dictate the unfolding of your life? I'm happy to at some point elaborate with like my perspective, my theory on that scientifically. And also if you get something from it and it feels good and it helps you figure out who you are, like why hate on it?
Yeah. What's the harm in it?
Yeah. And I just think it's a fun tool.
Love. Okay. Meditation.
What kind of meditation?
Just in general. I mean, I know there's a lot of different types, but maybe for you, you can elaborate on like, are there some that you would eat and some that you would 86?
I personally eat the meditations that give me the permission to like have the flexibility to just like sit and exist in quiet in my body and really regulate and drop in. I personally 86 the ones that feel really rigid, but that's because I am in a place in my life where I don't like that like dogmatic, like must do certain position, but like I think that they're really helpful.
What about like a 45-minute Joe Dispenza?
I've never done a Joe Dispenza meditation.
Oh my God, you need to do that because he
I know.
also is like neuroscience.
I tell you, there's a lot of things where people are like, you should do that. And I'm like, and then I'm like, not for me. And I know that I trust myself that like when it's right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I find meditation to be a place of like connection with myself and to quiet and drop into my body and to receive messages or receive some type of guidance or clarity. So I love that kind of meditation personally, but the more rigid ones, like I don't find
Like
that
guided?
I just don't do them.
Yeah.
I do guided meditations for myself. I love listening to ones that like certain people have done. I think it's important to, and this is a whole different conversation, when you're looking for a healer or like an intuitive or anything, that you feel like it is aligned with who you want to be and like makes you feel really connective. And if something doesn't feel right, not forcing it.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last one, human design.
I want to be at like Costco flavoring more of human design. I just don't know a lot about it. Like everything that you've told me, Amanda and you and I exchanged like services. I gave you Reiki, you gave me human design reading. I loved it, and I haven't like sunk my teeth into it yet. But I feel like I'm in like the Costco like walking around sampling phase of like I feel like a 2-4. I just don't know enough about it. You know what I mean? I also think that certain tools like you're gonna resonate with at a certain time in your life, and if you don't feel like something is like speaking to you or calling to you, or like I definitely feel like when I find something I'm really excited about, I like can't stop inhaling it. It's kind of like raspberries in me. If you put a bowl of raspberries in front of me, they'll be gone in 5 minutes. I don't know what to tell you about that. Like that's just how it is. And trusting that like that's science. Well, trusting that when you feel called to something and something feels really good when you're engaging with it, and good in the like freeing, expansive, right way that's giving you more freedom.
Yeah.
Go towards that.
Yeah.
Like don't force yourself to do things that like don't feel good to you. So if something's not resonating right now, it might resonate later and it might not be your thing. And that's why there's like a million different systems, the Enneagram, human design, astrology, tarot, like there's a new one that I forget the name of that my friend introduced me to, and I was like, what is this? And like, it's not my thing yet, but like there's different systems for different reasons and like
different flavors.
Yeah. And like
different spices.
We need different flavors.
Yeah. Love. Okay. Last question before we wrap up. What do you think that people need to bring to the table to find success in career, love, or self-love?
I'm thinking. Curiosity and discernment. So be really non-judgmental and just like really curious, and then being able to discern if what you're hearing or receiving or relating to or discovering feels in alignment. So like right on that like really deep soul level, when you know, like, and everyone knows this moment when you like have something happen, you're like, this could not be more me. This could not be a bigger fuck yes for me. And being able to discern at the same time, like what is a hard, like this isn't for me moment. And that's that discernment of like, just because it's a good thing, is it for me? And how can I get really curious about that thing so I can learn about it and then be curious about how I'm relating to it and then making decisions accordingly.
I love that. Well, on that note, can you look at this camera and say that this episode is officially 86th?
This episode is officially 86th.
I love the hand.